Which I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, it's business, they're trying to keep their market share, trying to grow it.
But ultimately, I don't like
Well,
people pay subscription fees.
No, I don't, but there's schools that are doing that don't even have money. I mean, oh, I know Wayne, for example.
Yeah.
They're doing it, I don't think they're double, but they're charging.
NFHS, it could be NFHS.
It probably is, it might be. They're doing it like $6 per game,
Yeah.
per broadcast. Like, so if you watch Girls Boys, it's like $12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I guess they're getting away with it, and I hope that's not the way
Everybody done scooping?
things are moving.
Yeah, that's good, right?
I'm afraid it might be.
I don't know, as long as I'm drawing breath, I'll get sponsors and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but ultimately, if the school tells you, hey, Kelly, we're gonna start charging, and they're gonna have to start charging.
Yeah, I drove
Yeah,
in.
but if I were able to get the school money, then I don't think it's.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to figure out a way to offset it, that they think they could be using, right?
Someone's all right. Yeah.
Well, if we follow the Blair model,
Yeah.
this year, we're getting, this next 3 years, we're anticipating they'll get 100,000 a year out of it. How many get that out of subscriptions?
No. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it.
What's that?
Otherwise, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly.
Charlie's on our way.
I'm pretty.
I got a Jeff that was gonna start right there, that I'm here towards the third grade.
Oh, yeah.
Right down by the Iron Workers Union.
There's a lot of stuff tucked back in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, we're getting ready.
Just so mad.
Got all the
In there,
bills approved.
the refs
Show the.
did not want to
showing
do it, just hung over his own board and just didn't want to start this. Like, I
don't-
whatever.
Just let them run around.
Go.
They're third graders.
You just didn't care. And then they would blow a whistle every once in a while, and you'd think that maybe he just tripped over his shoes with a whistle, and you're like, what? It's like,
No.
foul on that kid? And of course, we won, so they were very angry, we didn't care very much, because we won.
It was a busy day.
Several parents out of those things.
Oh, man, the guy said that,
Waverly in particular, I guess.
this was a
Very,
like, they had, I got a story.
Yeah.
I was going to scoreboard the guy next to me.
All right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcement of Open Meeting Act. We have information on the wall for our open meeting requirements. And with that, we'll do the roll call.
Stuart Ritchie.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Carl Wolford.
Here.
Ryan Diaz.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Matt Snyder.
Here. We have no proclamations. Audience comments on items not listed on the agenda. So if there's something you would like to let us know about, we will not be able to make any comments, but we would entertain any comments. Seeing none, I guess we go for department head reports.
So I don't have a formal report, I just have a couple things that I want to call to your attention to. I know that I have mentioned conversations we've had about Westview Apartments, and that HUD was going to be on site to do inspection on that day, which was February 13th, I believe it was, or was it the day of the council meeting? Grant and I went over and met with them. We have heard back from the resolution specialist that HUD brought in to help kind of address some of the issues. And they sent a report. They did an inspection of several of the rooms. They talked with several residents. And so I believe there's things that are going to change there. It might be a slow process, but I'm hopeful that the owner is going to be asked to take care of a few things. So that was a positive. Just a reminder, March 13th, we have the Wahoo is the inaugural community partnership program with the Nebraska National Guard. And yesterday I was able to attend a session at the League Midwinter Conference where the TAG, I'm trying to, the general of the Nebraska National Guard was there, and he was just talking the community about the CPP, the Community Partnership Program, and they're very excited to be here. They're bringing several people with them, and so I'm hoping that the community is excited to receive them as they are to be here. So they're excited about having conversations. They want to just form relationships with the community, with leaders in the community, with business owners, find out what we need, and so that in the event of their, an emergency, or that those relationships are formed already, and we're not sort of knocking down those barriers when we are in a state of need. So also at the League Midwinter Conference, there was a lot of conversation about EPIC. I have not done a presentation to the council on EPIC. If that's something you want to learn about, I'd be glad to have that conversation. I did 2 presentations today on that to the crowd that attended the Midwinter Conference. Just about, there's a group from Nebraska City Managers Association that put together, did an analysis of impacts to cities. And so we reviewed some of our information from there. And again, as we said in our meeting, it's not about telling you whether you should sign the petition or should not sign the petition. My field of expertise is with city government, and so taking the information that's currently out there, analyzing it, and looking at how it will apply to or impact the city is kind of what we spent some time talking about. There's also conversations about some of the budget changes that the governor is talking about putting in place. There's some bills that are going to be probably in March. They'll really be having some conversations about it. I think initially the governor wanted to see a 0% increase in property tax, specifically from local government, meaning cities, counties, and NRDs. I think that NACO and league officials are in some negotiations with the governor's staff, and we're hoping that doesn't land at 0, because I don't really think that's something that we would be able to work with. The costs of all of our inputs for providing the services don't stay at 0. They all increase. So I'll try to keep you posted on that as it advances. One great thing, and I know I've struggled in the past in our budget processes, is to explain the restricted funds. And so the proposal that's being discussed eliminates all of the restricted funds. It's strictly a simple, I say simple budget, but it eliminates all of those extra calculations that have to be done. So I guess that's a good thing. I see Bobby is here now, and if you recall, it's been probably over a year ago, we entered into an agreement with her to conduct an annexation study, and so I think she's here to share her information and her report.
All right.
What do you need from?
Just whatever this on
Okay.
online. Good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. I was coming from Knox County. I'm starting to take it personally. Every time I go to Knox County, the weather turns horrible. So I made terrible time getting here this evening, but I'm here, so that's the good part. So I'm Bobby Pettit. I'm the owner of 5 Rural Planning. This project is the 3rd time I've had the opportunity to work with the city of Wahoo. You were one of my very first clients when I first started this company. I was gonna say this job. When I started this business, I did a blight study for you, and then we worked on your design guidelines. This annexation study is the 3rd project that we've done for you. I don't want to be like a normal consultant and be late on everything, but I am pretty late on this study. However, I do feel like it's that we are leaving you with some very good information. With Melissa and Ryan were great to work with, and I brought them a couple of drafts. A couple of times we attempted the study, and I didn't like the way it was going. I thought that I was being very redundant, making lots of copies and making lots of copies of maps you already had and telling you information you already knew. So some of the nerds in the room will appreciate what I'm about to say, and that is that there's nothing a good spreadsheet can't solve, right? There's nothing that Excel can't help you do when you really need to wrap your mind around something. So that's that eventually became the main tool that we utilized. And so Wahoo is actually one of the biggest communities that I work in. I'm used to working in communities around 500 to 1,500. And so words like annexation always like initially they bring up an emotional reaction right away. And so it's hard to be logical sometimes, but it is necessary if you want to grow as a city. It's necessary for the landowners around you as well to have that opportunity to continue to provide services for everyone to belong to your community. So Wahoo is also a great city because of all the planning that you guys have engaged in. So up there on the sheet and within your executive summary was 8 different studies that we had to draw from, or 8 different studies that you had done in the past that I read through. And I was not just padding my bibliography. With the exception of that water, sewer, and electric study, I did read all the other things page to page and look for clues and hints about where he would already talked about your annexation. So the document that we ended up focusing on the most or using the most was your comprehensive plan, which as a planner always gives me, warm feelings in my tummy to know that we're using the comprehensive plan. So within your comprehensive plan is your future land use map. Within that summary I gave you, there should be a copy of the annexation areas. This first part of the study is, I accepted a long time ago that, you're probably not going to read everything I write right away and digest it right away, but this first part of the study would be good for you to refer back to, and it's just a definition of the terms that we throw around a lot, that you probably hear a lot too, but it's just supposed to be a quick reference for you. And then a couple pieces of case law when it comes to annexation. There are words within the laws, the state statutes, like adjacent and contiguous, and the Supreme Court in Nebraska has had to redefine those a couple of terms several times. So those are in there for you. And then I referenced your future land use map. So within your comprehensive plan, there's lots of good information, but this future land use map is really the page that links your comprehensive plan to all of your policies as far as planning goes. So your comprehensive plan is not necessarily law. It's your plan, but it is attached to your zoning regulations, your design guidelines, and those are law. So this map is pretty important to you. So this map fed a lot into the work that we did on the comprehensive plan. Who's running the computer? Is it you? Okay, can you just keep going? Yeah. Thank you very much. So if you could pause here for a second. These are the study areas. So this was just Melissa and Ryan and myself and another one of my team members sitting around a map talking about all the different dynamics of the land and what has already taken place and what plans have been put in place utilities wise, and that is how we identified these 22 different areas. So these are the areas that we looked at in doing this annexation study. I'm going to talk about area 3 as an example. So if you want to keep going, keep moving down the sheets. We had this scoring criteria, right? So part of the deliverable that we gave you was several Excel spreadsheets, and I have found when I first started talking, I said the annexation can immediately be emotional, and so to try to make it more logical, we came up with a scoring system to try to make your decision as mathematical or as quantitative as possible. So these are the criteria we looked at. First of all, something that's very important is adjacent. Is it touching Wahoo right now? And then the second one is contiguous. So contiguous is what piece of the area we're looking at, how much of that border is also touching the city of Wahoo. So there has been, there are things like strip annexation. You think about York. York proper, the main city of York, is quite a ways off the interstate. When they annexed everything out at the interstate, they just followed the highway that goes from the city of York down to the interstate. So good for them for getting that done, because you can't do that anymore. That's a finger. They use really technical terms in the case law, and they said you can't have a finger. It can't be a finger size piece of land. Whatever finger, we don't know what that is for sure. And so we tried to measure that with this % primary contiguous. The secondary contiguous is if you were to annex other areas touching the area that we were studying, then how much of the piece of property be contiguous. So there's a definition right there of your primary contiguous, which is on the east side of Area 3. That's what's touching Wahoo right now. And then if you were to annex the other two areas around Area 3, then that would be your secondary contiguous. And keep moving to the next sheet. Thank you. This utility is within reach. So I've told Melissa and Ryan that I have a master's degree in planning, and I feel like we spent a lot of classes talking about feelings and rights and stuff, and all that's important. But what I really needed to be learning was that stuff has to flow downhill, right? If you want to be able to afford to develop land, it's got to flow in a certain way. Otherwise, you're looking at a lot of money in lift stations and dirt work. So the first rule with your utilities was if it was in 1320 feet, 1,320 feet of the nearest hookup. So your subdivision regulations require that if you are proposing a development close to Wahoo and the development that you're proposing is within 1,320 feet of the nearest sanitary hookup, then you have to hook up to utilities. And so working in, small town planning, this is important to you. There's too many communities that I work with today that ended up getting landlocked on one side of town completely with, rural subdivisions or people dropping their own well and septic, choosing not to connect to the village or the city utilities, even though they were close. So I'm happy to see this requirement, and I hope that you follow through with it all the time. This 1320 is also in effect for your water. So any development within 1,320 feet of your nearest water system is required to hook up to. And so we started rating these areas 1 through 22 above the line and below the line. So if they were located within 1,300 feet of the nearest sanitary hookup, then they were above the line. If they're more than 1,300 feet, then they are below the line. So we kind of split them off between 1 and 2, what was already in and what wasn't. Then this next one, this elevation one, this is back to the importance of things flowing downhill. So if the highest elevation point of the study area was higher than the highest elevation point of where you have to hook up because it has to flow downhill, then they got extra points for that too. So if the study area is higher in elevation than where you're going to hook up to, then that was extra points. So down there at the bottom, that's where that adds up into the total score of this area as far as utilities and elevation goes. Keep going, please. This one, I call this your return on investment, like what you can expect to receive in property taxes if you were to annex this ground. So this is based on your future land use map. So those fields on the left, those are all the different uses that you identify in your future land use map. Your future land use map was that map we went over earlier that I said is from your comprehensive plan. So the area that I gave you, for example, in this summary, 100% of the area was the future land use map was showing medium density residential. So we measured how many acres were medium density residential. Within the small mountain of spreadsheets that we gave Melissa, if there was floodplain, we did 2 separate calculations. So this is how much is developable if you include floodplain, and this is how much is developable if you completely leave floodplain out. So we're saying right now you have 20 acres of medium density residential. And then we looked at comparable, luckily around the wall, nice thing I had to work with that I don't always have to work with is new developments or new homes that have been built recently inside of medium density residential in the Wahoo area. And so that was the average lot size. And so that calculation just shows you how many lots you could expect to get out of this one area. I believe this is area 3. So 20.4 acres in area 3, all showing medium density residential. If we go with that average lot size, roughly 58 lots is what you could expect to get out of area 3. So then if you scroll down again, what does that do to your taxes? So we also looked at similar developments that were medium density residential and took into account what they are assessed at, what their rate is assessed at right now. and then what that equals them paying in property taxes every year. So we pretended that this development was built out as medium density residential, and then we estimated how much property tax revenue we think you would get off of that area if it was developed and built out to medium density residential. And then, so this tells you, if it's more than $1 million, it's valuable to you. If it's less than $100,000, it's maybe not that valuable to you, right? It could be used for something else that you would not ever want to annex in. What also I want to point out about this quick is that if you scroll up a little bit, you can mess with those acres, right? As you have people coming to you asking you to amend your future land use map or to change your zoning regulations within, your 1 mile, what we call the ETJ, you can plug those numbers into this and see what that would do to you. So someone comes to you and says, we don't want to do medium density residential. We prefer to do low density residential, which is really popular on the eastern end of the state, communities your size and smaller, right? Put our small castles on the edge of town. Then you could take those acres out of medium density residential, plug them into low density residential, and that would quickly tell you how the property tax revenue that you could collect would be impacted. Keeps rolling down. I have to watch myself. I don't want to bore you to sleep. I just get very excited about this stuff. So this elevation one, this one is kind of what took a while too. So back to the understanding that land, the topography of the land is very important. I've been a part of several projects now where we, for me, willing landowner is always number one, right? Still capitalist kind of sort of society that we live in. And so we still have private property rights. So changing a person's mind can always be the most difficult thing. So willing landowner always comes first. But now what I'm learning is we have more communities that are learning to build subdivisions again. If that landowner's land is too flat or too steep, then there's significant cost involved in developing that land. So I bumped into and then began working with a geographic information systems, a GIS consultant who's also a GIS professor at UNK, who really loves to get into this stuff too. And so he figured out a way to determine what percentage of the annexation area would be considered really kind of too flat to develop, which is 0 to 2% elevation. Something 0 to 2%, you can work with it, but you're gonna be hauling dirt in. And that was always a surprise to me, is we pay for dirt, but turns out you do, and you pay a pretty penny for dirt actually. If it's too steep, then you're going to be doing a lot of dirt work, and I guarantee there's going to be, that when the project's over, the contractor and the engineer will be doing this, right? Because it's not going to be draining right. We've all been through that. But then if it's 2% to 8%, that's basically considered ideal. So I think that one you're showing right there, I think we have 54% is 2% to 8%, right? So that tells you this is also probably a piece of ground that you care about. If it's too flat, then maybe this is not a priority for you. If it's too steep, also maybe it's not a priority for you to grow that way as a city. Then the last one we took into account was other considerations. So a strategic asset. Is there a development coming or a facility located within this study area that it would be in the best interest of the residents of Wahoo to have this annexed into the city? That's hard to predict, right? So that's something you have to plug in. Again, I said if you have a willing owner, that's always nice. In Nebraska, you don't have to have a willing owner to annex them, but you probably know it's expensive and unpleasant to annex land when the owner's not willing. And then the private investment. So is the developer, or if the developer coming to you and they're willing to pay for some of the project, or they'll let you develop the land, but they have no money to put into it. Or is it going to take a lot of incentives? If you're going to have to use tax increment financing to get the project done, then how much public investment is there and how much private investment is in there? And so that last one, the other considerations, there's still a little bit of qualitative, there's still a little bit of judgment left, or topics that you can argue, and that's that last piece that goes into the scoring. So we took all of those together and then we scored an area. So we did this 22 times. So this is your overall score for area 3. So each one of those criteria that I explained to you, here's the scoring system that we did for area 3. So, because I'm a consultant, I have to give this to you in pretty looking documents, but we also gave the Excel sheets to Ryan and Melissa. So, you know, you can go back in if you don't agree with the way I've scored these, or, you know, we need to put more points somewhere else, or the points aren't meaningful enough, then all of this is really more of a tool than a study for you guys to use. So area 3 just shows you the different calculations that we went through and how we came across the scoring that we came across. And then if we go to the last page, please. So this is all, so then now this is all the areas together. So if you want to know like how we came up with the score for area 3, then you could go back up and look at our numbers. So if you scroll down just a teensy bit more, then you see where the red line is at. So we had 3 areas, actually 3 out of 22 areas that we would consider below the line, and then the other 19 areas were above the line. So all of those 19 areas are within 1,320 square feet. So I feel like I should stop talking, but you know, if you look at the points, area 1's the most valuable to you, or should be a big priority for you. So once we really got into it, once we really figured out what we were doing and that it was going to work, this was a lot of fun, and I hope that you will use it, and I hope it'll be valuable to you.
What's interesting, you were able to put some numbers on stuff. I do like the spreadsheet approach. It works well.
Yeah, sometimes spreadsheets are what you need. So that should help you as Wahoo's going to grow, obviously, and every time I come here, there's one more place for me to eat out, or there's one more place for me to buy gas. So there's more traffic coming in and out of town. So I think you're having good growth, and I think it's because you're doing good planning, obviously. And so I think that topic of annexation is going to continue to come up for you, or you're going to continue to be approached with developments that you may or may not want. And so, you know, when the property owner is standing here, the realtor is standing here telling you, I hope that you can utilize this information and decide for yourself what you think is best.
Yeah, it's going to be helpful.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your patience. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to work with the City of Wahoo.
Well, thank you. This looks like it'll be a living document for us. We'll be able to keep using it.
Yes, it's supposed to be a tool, so.
I think all of us are just involved.
Yeah.
I can't help but stare at them. I'm a little surprised by some of them, right? Like, some of them you'd think, man, that stinks, because that was one that, you know, I would have thought that we would be growing that direction, but it doesn't fit the bill as well.
Which one are you looking at, Joe?
Like 22,
Yeah.
I guess I would have thought, you know, but obviously that's
It
pretty far
doesn't say
down
you
the list.
can't, it just gives you an idea. It gives you barriers.
Well, it's mostly developed already.
Yeah.
22 it is.
Right.
So it's like, well, do we let it go now? Because is it worth the hassle of
It's a big one.
bringing
Sewer.
everybody in? It's like parenting, right? Is it always worth the fight? Is it really worth it to make you stop watching YouTube right now, or I'd rather deal with this later with a bigger fight, you know?
That's useful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we can go back and catch Denise if you have time for a library.
Great, yeah, thanks. I'm gonna be really quick. I'm just gonna update you on a couple of things. The summer reading program theme is Adventure Begins at the Library, that's an everyday thing, but Carrie gave me this report. Adventure awaits this summer, pirates, sharks, caves, Olympic feats, and as always, Jeff Quinn will be just a part of making this an exciting few weeks. Guests include Jeff Quinn, magician. We thank the Civic Center for always letting us use their facility for the great crowd. Wildlife Encounters is a first for us this year. We'll get to meet live critters that aren't usually something that you see in the wilds of Nebraska. We've never had wildlife encounters before. I guess they do a great job, so we're excited about that. And Chloe Burgett is a illustrator, Nebraska author illustrator, and she'll be coming back. She did a program for us last spring, and the kids loved it. She was great, so we're going to have her back We haven't finalized any specific dates or times yet, and we may add more guests if we can get some money out of Ryan and the Friends. So they were very generous last year, so I'm not too worried. We're only gonna do, Monday, Wednesdays will be story times at 10:30. Tuesdays will be summer reading program. After 2 years of few to no one showing up for the Thursday, Friday programs, we decided to drop those 2 days from the schedule and focus on other days. There's just a lot going on in the summer, so that's great. So we're excited about that. Just so you all know, the library will be hosting a shred day on Saturday, May 4th, that is open to the public of Wahoo. We prefer, but not that I'm asking anyone to show me proof of residency, I just like put it in the thing and go. And then also the Friends are gonna be providing us funding for a new puppet order, some tote bags that we're cooperating with the chamber on for their order, and I'm hoping to get a nice book, a machine that repairs books that we can actually maybe even go into bookbinding business on the side. Anyway, it's a pretty neat machine. And then also FYI for your own community information, I'm sure they'll be doing some publicity, but Senator Fisher's community outreach person will be here at the library on the 20th of March. She did book a space today, and she'll be here from 2 to 3 on the 20th. So hopefully they'll do better than the last one that was here that didn't think they needed to publicize. So, and that's why you only have one person show up, and it was somebody who just wandered in the building. So anyway, that's all I've got. So,
All right, thank you.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got 4 items in there: acceptance of excused absences, approval of the 23rd of January minutes, a change order, K2 construction. What's this?
February 13th minutes.
February 13th. Yeah. Well, the change order is a decrease, which is nice.
Easy one to get behind.
Yeah. And then approval of claims. So I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Got it.
Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
All right, so now, public hearing on associated action items, which does not require a public hearing, agreement with JO Consulting Group to provide for conceptual plans for evaluation of Civic Center remodel.
Good evening, everyone. Before you tonight is, as Stu mentioned, an agreement or a document that outlines a scope of services that we would like to engage JEO's services for, I guess, and that would include basically the start of a process to look at our Civic Center and begin that, take the first step towards creating more space and renovating the existing space that we have now. So a little bit of background I included in your packet, a little very basic line chart showing a little bit about, you know, the usage of our facility. And sometimes this gets lost, I think, in our monthly reports, but this is basically about a 25-year snapshot back to 2000 when I first came. This is my 24th year here in our community, so prior to me coming, I really didn't have much for data. But this gives you a little bit of hard data as to what we've seen with the usage trends, okay? It's pretty obvious what year we had COVID, right? Right there on the right side with 2020, but we've rebounded well since then. The top line is the cumulative number. When we look at our people that come through our front doors, that middle line is what we call informal drop-in usage, which is essentially folks that pay to come to our facility, whether they have a membership, whether they pay a daily fee, whether they use a punch card. These are the folks that are there to use the activity areas of our building. So that if they come in to swim, lift weights, play racquetball, use the gym, run on a treadmill, you name it. Those are the folks that are coming in that are paying to use our facility. And then the bottom line, the orange line, is we track this usage as well as best we can. And that's basically folks that are in the building because they are either participating in or perhaps even coaching or spectating in our rec programs. right? So it's all the kids that might be in our after-school program on a monthly basis, all of the kids that take swim lessons, those that are in there for youth sports, our adult leagues on a Sunday night or on a Thursday night for co-ed volleyball. All of those participants, we try to track those as well in terms of how many folks, bodies that brings into our building on a monthly, daily, weekly, monthly, and then obviously annual basis. So when you add that all up, last year, 2023, over 67,000 folks through our doors. And, you know, you think about that in a community our size, it's pretty impressive. And so what we're seeing, though, as you can see by this chart, what I'm just hoping to display to you, which if you come into our building, you feel that, is just the increase over the last 20 years, 25 years in our facility, and what, the level of participation and access that's being provided for folks. And of course, some of that, intuitively, right, makes sense given the growth in our community, right? The more we have more folks in our community, but I think you can see that our building is heavily utilized. So to that point, this is hard data, that we can see. But I think for those of you that come in on a regular basis, the anecdotal data is certainly there that you can feel and you can see, and if you drive by, even if you don't even come in the doors, you just know how busy we've become. And from a spatial standpoint, in terms of just square footage, we've probably been out of space for 10 plus years already, in terms of we're maxed out with places that we can add equipment, right? If you go to our weight room, strength training area, we can't add more equipment. All we can do, like we just did here a couple months ago, is refresh or rearrange or adjust things based on trends. Our fitness room, we're maxed out with the pieces of equipment we can put in there. Obviously, our gym has one court, and so we're maxed out on what we can provide there. So from a spatial needs standpoint, we know we've been maxed out for quite some time. And so moving forward, the purpose of what I'm here tonight for is to take that first step as a council, as a city, and as a community to begin what I think we need to do, and that is look at renovation of existing and then a significant expansion of our facility to accommodate our community for the next 25 years. 2028, in 4 short years, will be the 50th anniversary of the Civic Center. Okay, just to give you some historical perspective. And I think a great goal for our community would be to be in a new building or a building that suits our needs for our 50th year. I think that would be a great goal for this community to shoot for, and the city to shoot for. And so what I'm asking for is to come and bring JEO in to begin that process. This is a scope of services, as it says, getting back to the actual the agreement. Basically, we have a pretty good idea of the areas where we need, more space, right? And so those are listed, those will be highlighted, those will be things we focus on. There's things like just obviously a gym for additional court space, elevated walking, jogging track, cardio, strength training space, all of those sort of things. There's some functional features we've identified for them to look at implementing early in the process, potentially, 24/7 access to cardio and strength training spaces, which is popular now given folks' work schedules. I think would be a key, component of what we would want to do. And keep in mind, I think the thing I don't want to also lose track of is senior services, and the senior center is a huge, important, intertwined dynamic with what we do. And so I think part of this design, preliminary design and study will also look at the senior center, okay? So they're going to look at the Civic Center kind of as option A and what could be done there. But option B that I've asked Corey Broderson, who's the architect for JEO that would be taking the lead on this, to do would be provide us with an option that would incorporate perhaps looking at senior services and the senior center in that structure. Because that structure too is still the original old high school facility building, and we're dealing with some things there that are not great for the senior services that we provide. There's elevation issues. If the thrift store, it sits higher, in terms of access. It's not, that zero entry that you'd want for senior population. We are also encountering some things like sewer lines that are settling and creating problems. So there's also the old boiler room back there that really nobody knows about. So I think to do our due diligence as a community and as the city, we need to look at that space as well to see if we could perhaps, again, position senior services to thrive for the next 20 to 25 years. Because those services, folks, as well, and what I just gave you there with hard data and numbers, that doesn't include senior services. And those programs are being accessed more and more all the time as well, whether it's their transportation programs, their meal program, having the fitness facility they have. And so I think keeping the Civic Center intertwined and having us adjacent to the senior service program and having them adjacent to us is important. And I feel very strongly about that. The great news is we have space, right? We have green space to the west. And so I feel good about what we can potentially add on to there. So I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of what we can do or what we will bring to you to the table, but this is simply an agreement to get things kick-started. Because, you know, sometimes things, well, they always do, and I've been doing, you know, and you folks can know this, things take longer than what we always anticipate, right? And so we need to get things rolling now, in my opinion. And I know there's a lot of conversations you've all had, I've been part of those, about city facilities. And I don't want to feel like, you know, I'm trying to jump ahead of everything or other folks or other areas. But I'm also, my job is to try to accommodate our constituency that we serve. And I think some of those folks are sitting behind me here that would attest to that. Some of you have been in our facility that can attest to that we need to start moving forward with a plan to address those needs. And that's what I'm here for tonight, to ask you to approve this so we can get that plan moving forward. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
In terms of the dollar amount, when we did the 2023-24 budget, we did include funding in our half-cent sales tax for capital improvements, recreation.
Yeah.
There
was a preliminary, right? When I presented my
number,
request to the Finance Committee, it was part of the request for this to be done during this fiscal year.
So that's where this 27.5 would come from, is out of the capital improvement
Yes.
budget from the Civic
sales
Center.
tax, yes.
Makes sense.
We've got probably some history with JEO on this. Is there any reason to talk to any other company? I mean, I think they're familiar with this building.
Yeah, Stu, I go back to their investment in our community, their familiarity with it. We did 13 years ago now, excuse me, coming on 13 years ago now, we did a spatial study with them for the Civic Center just to see what could fit.
Yeah.
And so they're familiar with that work, you know, a lot of those same people are still there, including Corey. So I feel very comfortable with them. I think, I think in my opinion, I feel very comfortable with what they can provide us in terms of the level of service. And again, the investment they have in our community to make sure what they do is going to be a quality project, so.
Well, and they've worked with you for a while. They're very familiar with that structure.
No doubt.
So it does look like they do plan on, 3 meetings, one meeting to meet with the design committee. Who is to be named? Do you know what a design?
Well, I think they throw that word in, design committee. I think that's gonna largely be a staff meeting with myself and our staff.
Okay.
And probably Melissa would be invited to that. And that way, just to get an idea of what we're asking them specifically to look at, and then nailing down those specific components that we feel important, that would be important in the programming of a plan and of a layout, right? And I think we have a pretty good feel for what that is, again, based on feedback over the years from our constituency and our patrons and our members, so.
So it does look like there would then be a meeting,
Right.
initial design, and then one meeting to review and present. So there would be a time for the public to have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at some point you're gonna need input from the public and from the constituency. And if that's just a matter of displaying a preliminary design and asking for feedback, I think that's all part of the process, right? Yeah. Keep in mind, this is very preliminary planning, right? This is to get an idea of what we can do on that space. And then probably as much as anything, another important aspect is the opinion of cost, right? To know what we're dealing with from a cost standpoint, and then developing a plan from there moving forward. And then once we get to that point, then final design work would take place, right? To kind of tweak things and really, get into the weeds, so to speak, so.
June 1's gonna get her pretty quick.
What's that? Yeah,
June 1's
exactly.
fast. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the
I'll second.
request.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. So now, approval of memorandum of understanding between the city and the municipal fire department agencies regarding an application for a FEMA assistance for firefighter grant for the purchase of radios.
So at the last council meeting, Amber Pellin and Tom, can't remember Tom's last name, what? Christensen were here and talked about this potential grant application. Since that time, Amber and Tom have reached out to the various other fire districts within Saunders County and to determine whether they're interested in participating. And then presented the MOU to Jovan. Jovan did do some tweaks to it and made some changes. And so at the time of the packet, there was a draft MOU, and then I added the final one that Jovan had given his approval on. So if you are supportive of being the applicant for this regional grant for the radios, I would ask that you give Jerry as mayor the authority to sign this agreement. And then from there, Amber and her team would take this to all of the fire districts to get their signatures on it as well. As I mentioned, with this amount of money, we would expect that we'll probably have to comply with a single audit. And those fees were incorporated into the grant application. A single audit for a specific, I don't know, the airport just went through this 2 years in a row, and they cost about $10,000 each year for them to verify that we are using the federal dollars the way that we're supposed to be using them. So,
If I remember right, we have to have this done by the 8th, right?
yes, this grant application deadline is March 8th. And I give a lot of credit to Amber and her team, because I truthfully did not believe that it would be possible to get input from all of these departments in the amount of time that she's had.
Did you get all 13?
No, likewise, Ashley on there.
Didn't respond.
Yep. I think there's 10.
Cedar Bluffs? Wow,
Nope.
that surprises me too.
So once all of if you approve this and they collect all of the signatures, then they'll submit this on grants.gov and it'll go through the process. I believe she said that, I'm not sure when the grant award date is, but I do remember her saying that the grant must be expended by December 31st of 2024. So it's in the grant world, it seems like it's a pretty quick turnaround.
There wasn't much difference between the final and the draft.
No, just a lot of boilerplate stuff. I asked for an indemnity clause to be added because I want to make sure if somebody misappropriates funds, does something,
Okay.
that it doesn't fall back on you as the program sponsor, nothing like that. So she added everything that I asked in there. The only two things I asked for as a point of clarification only, not in the document, was one was what is the course of order as it relates to the funds? Meaning, are you going to have to expend funds, advance them, and then ask for them to be reimbursed by the listed agencies or the like, or are you going to be able to invoice them, receive the funds, and then apply the monies? And that's the order, as I understand it, is you'll receive the monies before you actually pay the bills. So there's not a substantial risk that you're going to have to chase after a community for their percentage.
And that was a point of, in our initial conversations, that was something I said, we as a city don't have the cash to bankroll $1 million worth of radios, so we would be looking at some sort of borrowing, and the costs associated that would have to be incorporated. But she's since found out that this is It's not a true reimbursement grant. They will provide us with the money to make the purchase.
And March 8th is a hard date, so if a town that's not listed on here decides to get in 30 days later?
They could apply on their own.
Okay,
They could apply next year.
okay.
Yeah, there's time before the radio system goes live, so.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign it.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second, roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Creachy,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And again, a great appreciation to Amber for handling it all, because I did very little except answer a few questions here and there, so
You bet. That's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work,
It's a lot
yes.
of work.
Okay, we'll move on for approval of contract for natural test, or material test services from Theo Geotech for North Highlands.
Phase two.
1, phase 2.
Yes. So this is the standard material testing that we have for like subgrade and compaction testing, concrete testing that we have with any of our projects. Teal Geotech is a company that we've worked with frequently. They did all of the testing on North Highlands Phase 1, so this would be a project cost that would then be assessed or split with the city appropriately for the oversizing of the streets and such. So they always estimate high, if at least that's been my experience with them. They give you a unit rate schedule, and depending on the contractor, it can be less testing. They still meet our regulations, but there's and with Emmy Collins being the contractor, I'm confident that it'll come in under this 16,512. So.
Yeah, they may not even use a drilling for compaction, depending on.
Yeah, they put some of these things in and estimate as just in case, so that the rate is established if it is something that's needed.
Take that into the.
I'll make the motion that we approve a contract for material testing for
I'll second that.
Geotech.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Rappel.
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Creachy.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
All right, and moving on to approval of third and final reading of the ordinance number 2448 on annexation.
For the trail and sewer.
That's for Wilma Ridge. Okay,
Yeah,
this is what,
yeah, this
trail
is
and
the-
sewer easement.
Yeah, that's JDO asking us to do it. This is the third reading. We've gone through this one a couple times,
Yeah.
so I would make the motion to approve the third reading.
I'll second.
Got a couple of those.
I got it.
Second, and a third, and a fourth.
Got them all.
Okay, now roll call, please.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Creachy.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
All right, so now we're down to mayor's comments for items not listed on the agenda. I don't have any, I'm not the mayor, but council, council comments, I don't have any comments either. Anything else? All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right, there we go.
May I ask how to get on your agenda?
Yeah, I can take your email address and I can send it to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, yep.